The scream that tore through the autumn twilight sent Landon Norris running from his barn with a pitchfork in hand, his heart hammering against his ribs as he scanned the darkening tree line beyond his wheat fields. He had lived alone on this farm for 3 years now, ever since his father passed, and his mother moved to live with his sister in the eastern settlements. And in all that time he had never heard such a sound raw, desperate, and unmistakably afraid. He was a tall man, lean from hard work rather than abundance, with sun-weathered skin and dark hair that fell into his eyes when he forgot to cut it. At 26, he had already resigned himself to a life of solitude. The war had taken most of the young men from the surrounding farms, and those who returned were changed, haunted. Landon had been spared by a childhood injury that left him with a slight limp, not enough to stop him from working his land, but enough to keep the recruiters away. He told himself he was grateful, but sometimes the loneliness felt like its own kind of battlefield. The scream came again, closer this time, and Landon's grip tightened on the pitchfork as a figure burst from the forest. His breath caught. Even in the fading light, he could see the distinctive green skin, the muscular build, the way she moved with a warrior's grace despite her obvious terror. An orc. A female orc, and she was running straight toward his farm. Behind her, the trees exploded with movement. Men on horseback, 5 of them, wearing the red bands of the Cleansing Brigade, self-appointed vigilantes, who claimed to be protecting human settlements from orc raids. Landon's stomach turned. He had heard stories about what the brigade did to orcs they caught, especially females. The stories made him sick. The orc woman stumbled, catching herself against his fence post. In that moment, their eyes met across 30 yards of stubbled earth. Hers were golden, bright as coins, wide with fear and something else, a desperate, pleading hope that punched through his chest like a blade. She was young, perhaps his age or younger, with delicate tusks that barely protruded past her full lips and long dark hair that had come loose from its braid. Blood streaked down her left arm. Landon did not think. Thinking would have meant weighing consequences, considering danger, remembering all the reasons why helping an orc could destroy his life. Instead, he dropped the pitchfork and ran toward her, his bad leg protesting with every step. "The barn," he shouted, gesturing wildly. "Go to the barn." She hesitated only a heartbeat before she vaulted his fence with athletic ease and sprinted toward the weathered structure. Landon changed course, putting himself between the approaching riders and his property. He reached his gate just as the lead horseman thundered up, yanking his mount to a halt in a spray of dirt. "Out of the way, farmer," the man snarled. He was older, with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow and the self-righteous fury of someone who believed cruelty was virtue. "We are tracking a dangerous orc criminal." "I have not seen anyone," Landon said, keeping his voice steady despite his racing pulse. "And this is private property. You have no authority here." "We have the authority to protect human settlements from orc filth," another rider spat. "She ran this way. We saw her." Landon shrugged, forcing his expression into something resembling bored indifference. "Then she must have kept running. My farm is empty except for me and my cow. You are welcome to check the fields, but stay away from my buildings." "I will not have armed men disturbing my livestock." The leader's eyes narrowed. For a terrible moment, Landon thought the man would push past him anyway. Then one of the other riders called out, "There are tracks heading north along the tree line. She must have cut around the property." The lie was so obvious that Landon almost flinched. But the leader was already turning his horse, apparently eager enough for the hunt that he would accept any excuse to continue it. "If we find out you are harboring her, farmer, you will hang alongside the monster," the man said. Then he spurred his horse and the group thundered away into the gathering darkness. Landon stood at his gate until the sound of hoofbeats faded completely. His hands were shaking. What had he done? Lying to the brigade was one thing, but he had an orc woman hiding in his barn. If anyone found out, he would lose everything: his farm, possibly his life. Orcs and humans did not mix. That was the way things had always been, especially after the border wars. But he remembered those golden eyes, bright with terror and hope. He walked slowly to the barn, giving her time to hear him coming. When he pushed open the door, he found her pressed into the far corner beside the cow's stall, a rusted scythe gripped in both hands. Up close, she was striking in a way that made his throat tight. Tall and strong, yes, but with a face that was both fierce and fine-boned, her tusks small and elegant rather than brutish. The blood on her arm came from a deep gash that still oozed red. "They are gone," he said quietly, holding his hands where she could see them. "They believed me when I said you had run north. They will not come back tonight." She said nothing, just stared at him with those extraordinary eyes. Her chest heaved with ragged breaths. He noticed she was wearing leather armor, well-made but travel-worn, and there was an empty knife sheath at her belt. "You are hurt," he continued, gesturing to her arm. "Let me get some water and bandages. That wound needs cleaning or it will fester." "Why?" The word came out rough, almost guttural. Her accent was thick, turning the single syllable into something that held 100 questions. "Why what? Why help me?" She straightened slightly, though she did not lower the scythe. "You are human, I am orc, we are enemies." Landon considered this. It was not a simple question to answer because he did not fully understand his own motivations. Finally, he said, "I do not think I believe in enemies anymore. Just people who are afraid and people who are cruel and people who are trying to survive. You looked like someone trying to survive." Something shifted in her expression, surprise, maybe, or confusion. Slowly, she lowered the scythe. "The men chasing you," she said. "They will kill you if they learn you sheltered me." "Probably," Landon admitted, "but they are not here now and you are bleeding. So let me act like a decent human being for once in my miserable life and help you." The corner of her mouth twitched, almost a smile. "You call yourself decent, but you call your life miserable, which is true. Both, I think." He moved carefully toward the barn's small side room where he kept supplies. "What is your name?" She was silent so long he thought she would not answer. Then softly, "Kerra, Kerra," he repeated. It suited her. "I am Landon Norris. Welcome to my farm, though these are terrible circumstances for hospitality." He returned with a bucket of water from the well, clean rags, and the tin of salve his mother had left behind. Kerra had moved to sit on a hay bale, and in the lantern light he could see how exhausted she was. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her hands trembled slightly where they rested on her knees. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to her injured arm. After a moment, she nodded and extended it toward him. The wound was uglier up close, a jagged slice that ran from her shoulder nearly to her elbow. "This needs stitching," Landon said grimly. "I am not a healer, but I have closed wounds on animals. It will hurt." "Everything hurts," Kerra said. "Do what you must." He cleaned the wound as gently as he could, but she still hissed through her teeth when he poured water directly into the gash to flush out dirt. Her skin was warm under his fingers, the green shade deeper than he expected, almost like new leaves in summer. He had never been this close to an orc before. The small tusks that curved up from her lower jaw were ivory smooth, and her pointed ears twitched slightly whenever he touched a particularly sensitive spot. "Tell me something," he said as he threaded the needle, trying to distract both of them. "How did you end up being chased by the brigade?" Kerra's jaw tightened. "I was with a trade caravan. 5 wagons, humans and orcs together, bringing goods from the mountain settlements to the river towns. Legal trade with papers and permissions. Her voice turned bitter. The brigade did not care. They attacked us 2 days ago, said we were smugglers, spies. They killed 3 humans and 2 orcs before the rest of us scattered. I have been running since. Landon's hand stilled. They killed humans too. They kill anyone who treats orcs as people rather than monsters, Kerra said flatly. Your brigade does not protect humans. They protect hate. He could not argue with that. He had seen enough of the brigade's work burned orc camps, heads displayed on pikes at crossroads to know that their cruelty exceeded any definition of justice. He pressed the needle to her skin. This will hurt, he warned again, and then he began to stitch. To her credit, Kerra barely flinched. She watched his face instead of the wound, her golden eyes steady and searching. It unnerved him, that scrutiny, made him acutely aware of every small movement, every breath. You do this well, she said after the 5th stitch. Gentle hands for a farmer. My father was a surgeon before he bought this land, Landon explained. He taught me some things, said every man should know how to close a wound and birth a calf. He tied off another stitch. I never expected to use those skills on a person, though, certainly not an orc. And what do you think of treating an orc? There was challenge in her tone. Does it disgust you, frighten you? Landon met her eyes. No, he said honestly. Mostly it makes me sad that you expected it to. Kerra blinked, and for a moment her fierce expression cracked. She looked away toward the barn door and the darkness beyond. You are strange, Landon Norris. So I have been told. He finished the last stitch and wrapped her arm in clean bandages. There. It should heal clean if you keep it dry and change the dressing daily. You can stay here tonight. The barn is not much, but it is warm and the brigade will not come back so soon. I cannot stay, Kerra said immediately, though her exhaustion was visible in every line of her body. If they find me here, they will kill you. I have already put you in enough danger. Where will you go? Landon asked. You are hurt, exhausted, and they are hunting you. If you try to travel tonight, you will either collapse or they will find you. Neither option seems wise. Kerra stood abruptly, swaying slightly. I do not need your help beyond this. You have done enough, more than enough. Stubborn, Landon observed. Are all orc women this stubborn, or is it just you? All of us, she said, and there was a ghost of humor in her voice. It is how we survive. Then survive another night, Landon said. Please, just rest here until morning. Then, if you still want to leave, I will not stop you, but give yourself a chance to heal. She studied him for a long moment, and he saw the internal struggle play across her face, pride warring with practicality, fear fighting exhaustion. Finally, she sat back down heavily on the hay bale. Until morning, she agreed. But I will leave at first light. Landon nodded. Fair enough. I will bring you some food. When did you last eat? 2 days ago. That explained the hollow look in her face. I will be back soon, he promised, and left her in the barn with the lantern. The farmhouse felt emptier than usual when he entered it. He moved through the familiar routine of preparing a meal: bread, cheese, cold chicken from yesterday's dinner, and a jar of pickled vegetables. His mother's quilt still covered the rocking chair by the fireplace. His father's pipe sat on the mantel, never to be smoked again. This place was full of ghosts, and Landon had learned to live among them, but tonight their silence felt especially heavy. He packed the food into a basket along with a skin of water and returned to the barn. Kerra had not moved from the hay bale, though she had removed her leather armor and now sat in just a linen shirt and trousers. Without the armor, she looked smaller, more vulnerable, though the muscles in her arms and shoulders suggested strength held in reserve. Here, he said, offering the basket. It is not much, but it is better than nothing. She took it with both hands, and for a moment he thought she might cry. Instead, she whispered, "Thank you." Landon watched as she ate with the desperate efficiency of someone who had been truly hungry. When she finished, she looked up at him with an expression he could not quite read. "You asked why I wanted you to help me," Kerra said slowly. "Now I ask again, why did you? You gain nothing but risk." He sat down on a crate across from her, considering his answer. The truth felt too large to speak simply, so he started with a piece of it. "When I was 12, I fell from the hayloft and broke my leg badly. The bone came through the skin. My father was away and my mother could not move me alone. She ran to the neighbors, but they were 2 miles distant. I lay here in the barn screaming for what felt like hours." He paused, remembering the pain, the terror, the certainty that he would die. Then someone came. Not my mother, not the neighbors, an orc. A male, older, with gray in his hair. He was passing through, looking for day work. He heard me screaming and came to help. He set my leg, bound it, stayed with me until my mother returned with help. Then he left before anyone could see him, because he knew humans would not thank an orc for saving a human child. Kerra's eyes widened slightly. "You never learned his name?" "No." "And I never saw him again. But I remember his hands, how careful they were. How he spoke to me in broken human language, told me stories to distract me from the pain. My leg healed crooked, but I healed, because of him." Landon looked directly at Kerra. "So when I saw you running, terrified, bleeding, how could I do anything else? How could I be less than the orc who saved me?" She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. "That orc had a name. We all do, even when humans do not ask it. But I am glad he helped you, glad that you remember." "I never forgot," Landon said simply. The silence that fell between them was different now, less wary, more companionable. Eventually, Landon stood. "I should let you rest. I will be in the house if you need anything. Just call out, I am a light sleeper." "Landon," Kerra said as he reached the door. He turned back. She was looking at him with an intensity that made his heart skip. "I will not forget either. What you did today, I will not forget." He nodded, not trusting his voice, and left her to the night. Sleep did not come easily. He lay in his narrow bed, staring at the ceiling beams, and thought about golden eyes and gentle tusks and the feel of green skin under his hands. It was dangerous, this fascination. More than dangerous, it was impossible. Orcs and humans did not build friendships, let alone anything more. The war had carved a chasm between their peoples that could not be crossed, but he had crossed it today, and he could not make himself regret it. Dawn came gray and cold. Landon rose, dressed, and went to check on his unexpected guest. He found the barn empty except for his cow, who mooed at him reproachfully for the late milking. Kerra was gone. The blanket he had left for her was neatly folded on the hay bale, and beside it she had placed 3 silver coins, far too much for a night's shelter and a simple meal. Something like disappointment settled in his chest. He told himself it was better this way. Safer. She would move on, find her way to wherever she was going, and he would return to his solitary life. Everything would go back to normal. Except that night, when he went to close the barn for the evening, he found a brace of rabbits hanging by the door, cleaned and ready for cooking. No note, no explanation, but he knew who had left them. The next morning brought a bundle of firewood, neatly stacked by his kitchen door. The morning after that, he discovered that the broken slats in his fence had been repaired with fresh cut wood. She was still here. Somewhere nearby, watching, helping, staying when she had every reason to run. Landon's heart did something complicated in his chest. On the 4th night, he made a decision. He prepared a large dinner, more than he could eat alone, and set half of it in a covered dish outside the barn door. Then he went inside his house but left the kitchen window open, positioned so he could see the barn without being obvious. He waited. The stars came out. An owl called from the oak tree. And then, moving like a shadow, Kerra emerged from the forest. She approached the barn cautiously, saw the dish, and froze. For a long moment she just stood there, looking between the food and the house. Then, with a grace that made her seem to float, she picked up the dish and disappeared back into the trees. The next night he left dinner again. And the night after that. By the seventh evening it had become a ritual. He would prepare food, leave it by the barn, and she would take it when darkness fell. Sometimes she left things in return: more firewood, a basket of wild mushrooms, once a beautifully carved wooden spoon that must have taken hours to make. They did not speak, did not meet, but there was a conversation happening nonetheless. A dialogue written in acts of care and small kindnesses that felt more intimate than words. It could not last forever. On the 12th night, when Landon went to leave the evening's meal, he found Kerra sitting on the ground beside the barn door waiting for him. His breath caught. "Hello," he said quietly. "Hello, Landon Norris." She looked thinner than before, but her arm had healed cleanly and there was color in her face. "I thought perhaps it was time to thank my mysterious benefactor in person, rather than sneaking around like a thief." He set down the dish and after a moment's hesitation sat beside her, not close enough to touch but near enough to share space. "You did not need to stay," he said. "You do not need to repay anything. I know." Kerra tilted her head back, looking at the stars, "but I had nowhere else to go. The brigade has spread word about me. Every settlement, every town between here and the border. They claim I murdered a human child during a caravan raid." Her voice turned bitter. "A lie, of course. But lies spread faster than truth, especially when they confirm what people want to believe about orcs." Landon's hands curled into fists. "That is monstrous. That is survival for them. They need enemies to justify their existence. I am convenient." She looked at him then, and her eyes reflected the moonlight. "So I stayed here in your forest because it is the only place I feel safe, because you are the only human in 50 miles who did not treat me like a monster." "You are not a monster," Landon said fiercely. "Anyone who spends 5 minutes with you would know that." Kerra smiled, sad and small. "You are naive, Landon Norris, but I find I like that about you." They sat in silence for a while. Then Landon said, "The brigade will not stop looking. Eventually they will search more thoroughly, expand their patrols. Staying in the forest is not sustainable, especially with winter coming." "I know," Kerra said quietly, "so stay here. In the barn. Properly, I mean, not hiding in the trees." The words tumbled out before he could stop them. "You could help with the farm work if you wanted. Not as payment, just as a way to pass the time. And I would feel better knowing you had real shelter and regular meals." She turned to stare at him. "You cannot mean that." "If anyone discovered an orc living on your farm, then we will be careful," Landon said. "No one comes out here regularly. My nearest neighbor is 3 miles east and he minds his own business. The tax collector does not come until spring. It could work, Kerra, if you wanted it to work." "Why?" she asked again, echoing that first desperate question. But this time there was something different in her voice, hope, fragile and tentative. Landon met her eyes. "Because I am tired of being alone," he said honestly. "And because I think maybe you are too. And because when I imagine you leaving, I feel like something important is being taken away before I had a chance to understand what it was." Kerra's breath hitched. For a moment he thought she would refuse, would stand up and disappear into the forest, and he would never see her again. But then she reached out and took his hand, her green fingers wrapping around his calloused palm. "All right," she whispered. "I will stay, for a while, until it becomes too dangerous or until I find another way forward. Relief flooded through him so powerfully he felt dizzy. "Good," he managed. "That is good." They ate dinner together that night, sitting outside the barn under the stars, talking about small things her childhood in the mountain holds, his memories of his parents, the way the constellations had different names in orc and human cultures. It was easy, this conversation, easier than anything Landon had experienced in years. Kerra was sharp and funny, quick to laugh and quicker to challenge his assumptions. When she smiled, her tusks caught the moonlight and his heart did that complicated thing again. Much later, when the cold drove them to seek shelter, Landon showed Kerra the barn's small loft where he stored hay. He had brought up blankets and a pillow, made a nest that looked reasonably comfortable. "It is not much," he said, suddenly embarrassed by the poverty of his offerings. "It is perfect," Kerra said, and the way she looked at him made him feel like he had given her something precious beyond measure. He left her there and returned to his empty house, but for the first time in 3 years, the loneliness felt less oppressive. Because now, 30 yards away, someone was sleeping in his barn. Someone who made him feel less like a ghost moving through the remnants of a life, and more like a man with something to look forward to. The days fell into a rhythm. Landon would rise at dawn and do his morning chores, and Kerra would emerge from the barn as the sun cleared the horizon. They worked side by side, and Landon quickly learned that having an orc's strength on the farm transformed tasks that usually took him hours into work that could be accomplished in minutes. Kerra could hoist hay bales he had to roll, could repair the barn roof while he steadied the ladder, could plow a field in half the time with twice the efficiency. But it was more than her physical strength that impressed him. She had a quick mind for problems, could look at a broken piece of equipment and see immediately how to fix it. She knew things about crops and livestock that he had never learned, tricks passed down through orc farming clans that proved remarkably effective. When the cow developed a cough, Kerra mixed a poultice of herbs Landon had never heard of, and within 2 days the animal was healthy again. "How did you know that would work?" he asked, watching as she ground more of the herbs for storage. "My mother was a healer," Kerra said. "She taught me before," she stopped, her face closing off. "Before what?" Kerra was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, she said, "Before the raids. 10 years ago, when the border wars were at their worst. A human militia attacked our hold. They killed everyone they could catch. My mother, my father, my 2 younger brothers. I survived because I was out gathering water and hid when I heard the screams." Landon's throat closed. "Kerra, I am so sorry. I did not know." "How could you?" She did not look at him, kept grinding the herbs with methodical precision. "It is the story of 100 orc families, 1,000. Just as there are human families with the same story, orcs killing their loved ones in revenge or raids. The cycle continues. Blood for blood, pain for pain. It never stops." He reached out and gently stilled her hand. "It stops here," he said. "Between us. Can it not stop here?" She looked up at him, her golden eyes bright with unshed tears. "I do not know if 2 people can stop a war, Landon. Maybe not. But maybe we can prove that peace is possible, even if just in one small place." Kerra turned her hand over, lacing her fingers through his. They stood like that in the afternoon sun, holding hands across the space between their peoples, and Landon felt the moment settle into his bones like a promise. As autumn deepened into the bite of early winter, they grew more comfortable with each other. Kerra began joining him in the farmhouse for evening meals, at first hesitant and formal, then gradually relaxed. She would sit in his mother's rocking chair and tell him stories of orc culture, their complex honor codes, their love of music and oral history, the way they valued strength not as brutality, but as the capacity to protect and provide. In turn, Landon told her about his childhood, about his father's gentleness and his mother's fierce determination. He told her about the loneliness of the past 3 years, how he had sometimes gone weeks without speaking to another person, how he had begun to wonder if he would grow old here completely alone, forgotten by the world. "You are not alone now," Kerra said one evening, her voice soft in the firelight. "And I will not forget you, no matter what happens." They were standing close, closer than necessary, and Landon could feel the warmth radiating from her body. She smelled like the wood smoke and the herbs she had been grinding, and when she looked at him her eyes were molten gold. "Kerra," he breathed, and he did not know what he was asking for, but she seemed to understand because she leaned in, closing the distance between them until her forehead rested against his. "This is dangerous," she whispered, "what we are feeling." "If your people knew, if my people knew, I do not care," Landon said, and realized with a shock that it was true. "I do not care what anyone thinks. I only care about this, about you." She pulled back slightly, searching his face. "You cannot mean that. You cannot throw your life away for an orc." "I am not throwing anything away. I am choosing something. There is a difference." Landon, he cupped her face in his hands, feeling the slight texture of her green skin, the warmth of her breath. "Stay," he said. "Not just tonight, not just until spring. Stay, make a life here with me. I know it is insane and impossible, and I have no right to ask. But I am asking anyway because the thought of you leaving feels like dying." Kerra's eyes went wide, and for a terrible moment he thought he had pushed too far, asked too much. Then she kissed him, and his entire world narrowed to the point of contact, her lips against his, careful of her small tusks, her hands fisting in his shirt as she pulled him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she said, "I should say no. I should tell you this can never work. But I cannot seem to make myself say those words." "Then do not say them," Landon said. "Say something else instead." She smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. "I will stay," she said, "for as long as you will have me, and whatever comes of it, I will not regret choosing this." They kissed again, slower this time, learning the shape and taste of each other. When Landon's hands traced the curve of her spine, Kerra made a small sound of pleasure that sent heat flooding through his body. When her fingers threaded through his hair, he felt like every nerve was singing. Eventually, reluctantly, they pulled apart. It was late, and propriety, however absurd that seemed now, suggested they should retreat to their separate sleeping spaces. But as Kerra moved toward the door, Landon caught her hand. "Wait," he said. "There is something I want to show you." He led her up the narrow stairs to the second floor, to his parents' old room. He had not been in here since his mother left, but now he pushed open the door and gestured inside. The room was dusty but intact: a large bed with a thick quilt, a wardrobe, a window that looked out over the fields. "This was my parents' room," Landon said. "It has been empty for 3 years, but I thought if you wanted, you do not have to sleep in the barn anymore. You could have this room, have a proper bed, privacy, warmth." Kerra looked at the room, then at him, her expression complicated. "Landon, I cannot take your parents' room. That is too much." "They would want it used," he said. "They would want someone to be comfortable here. And he hesitated, then pushed forward. "I want you clothes. Want to know you are warm and safe, not sleeping on hay in a drafty barn." She stepped into the room, running her hand over the quilt. "This is too kind," she said softly. "You are too kind, Landon Norris. I do not know what I did to deserve this." "You exist," he said simply. "That seems to be enough." That night, Kerra slept in a real bed for the first time in months, and Landon lay in his own room down the hall, acutely aware of her presence. He could hear the faint sounds of her moving around, settling in, and each small noise made his heart race. This was madness. He was harboring an orc fugitive in his dead parents' bedroom. He was falling in love with someone the entire human world would condemn him for caring about. But lying there in the dark, listening to the old house creak around them, Landon could not bring himself to feel anything but happiness. The first snow came 3 weeks later, early for the season, blanketing the farm in white silence. Landon woke to find Kerra already outside, standing in the yard with her face tilted up to catch the falling flakes. She was laughing, actually laughing, spinning in slow circles with her arms outstretched. "I love snow," she called when she saw him watching from the porch. "We get so much of it in the mountains. I had forgotten how beautiful it is." He joined her, his breath misting in the cold air. "We will need to make sure the animals are secure. This looks like it will be heavy." "Later," Kerra said, grabbing his hands. "First, teach me a human snow custom. You have them, yes. Special things you do when the first snow falls." Landon thought about it, then grinned. "Well, when I was a child, my father would make snow angels with me." "Show me," she demanded, her eyes bright with eagerness. So he did, lying down in the fresh snow and sweeping his arms and legs to create the angel shape. Kerra watched, fascinated, then dropped down beside him to make her own. They lay there side by side in the snow, their breath visible in the cold air, and Landon thought that if he died right now he would die happy. "This is wonderful," Kerra said, still moving her arms. "Simple but wonderful. What else do humans do in snow? Build snowmen, have snowball fights, make snow forts." He turned his head to look at her. "What do orcs do? We have a tradition," Kerra said thoughtfully. "On the first snow you are supposed to make a wish for the winter, something you hope will come true before spring." "What would you wish for?" She was quiet for a moment. Then, so softly he almost missed it, she said, "I would wish that this could last, that we could stay like this together and nothing would come to tear us apart." Landon's chest tightened. "That is my wish too." They made their wishes in silence, committing them to the falling snow, and then helped each other up. The rest of the day was spent in preparation for the storm, securing the barn, bringing in extra firewood, making sure they had sufficient supplies. By the time evening fell, the snow was falling so thickly they could barely see 10 feet in any direction. They ate dinner by the fire, and afterward Kerra asked if Landon had any books. He showed her his father's small collection, mostly farming manuals and a few novels. She chose one of the novels, a romantic adventure story that his mother had loved, and curled up in the rocking chair to read while Landon mended some torn clothing. It was peaceful, domestic, and so perfectly normal that Landon kept expecting something to shatter it. But nothing did. The hours passed in companionable silence, broken only by the crackle of the fire and the occasional rustle of pages turning. When Kerra finally set the book aside, she looked at him with an expression he had learned to recognize, the one that meant she was about to say something important and difficult. "Landon," she said, "I need to tell you something. About orc culture, about our customs. Because if we are truly going to try to build something together, you should understand what that means for me." He set aside his mending. "All right, I am listening." She took a breath. "Among orcs, when two people decide to commit to each other to build a life together, there is a ceremony. A bonding. It is not quite like human marriage, but similar. It is a promise witnessed by the community, blessed by the elders, sealed with ritual." "That sounds beautiful," Landon said. "It is. But it is also binding in a way that human marriage is not. Once bonded, we are connected for life. To break that bond, to betray it, is considered one of the worst sins in orc culture." She looked down at her hands. "I tell you this because my heart is already bonding to you, Landon. Every day we spend together, every moment we share, I feel it growing stronger. If we continue on this path, there will be no turning back for me, not in the ways that matter." Landon crossed to her, kneeling beside the rocking chair so they were eye to eye. "And you think that frightens me? Kerra, I have already made my choice. The moment I lied to the brigade to protect you, the moment I asked you to stay, I was choosing you. I am still choosing you. I will choose you every day for as long as you let me. But you do not have the cultural weight I carry," Kerra said, her voice thick with emotion. "For you, this can still be a beautiful dream, a sweet impossibility. For me, it is becoming as essential as breathing." "Then teach me," Landon said. "Teach me how to carry that weight with you. Teach me your customs, your rituals. Make me understand what it means to you, so I can honor it properly." Kerra cupped his face, her thumbs brushing over his cheekbones. "You are the strangest, most wonderful human I have ever met," she said. "And I think I am falling in love with you, which is the most terrifying and exhilarating thing I have ever experienced." "I am already there," Landon admitted. "I fell in love with you somewhere between the second bundle of firewood and the 20th shared dinner, maybe sooner. Time stopped meaning much once you entered my life." She kissed him then, deep and searching, and Landon felt the truth of his words settle into certainty. This was love, real and complicated and completely inconvenient, and he wanted it with every fiber of his being. The snow continued for 3 days, trapping them in a world that seemed to consist only of the farm, the white silence, and each other. They spent the time working, talking, learning each other's histories and hopes. Kerra taught him words in the orc language, the guttural sounds that felt strange in his mouth but beautiful when she spoke them. He taught her human songs, and her voice turned out to be lovely, rich and deep. On the 3rd night, when the snow finally stopped and the stars came out brilliant in the clear sky, they walked together through the drifts to the top of the small hill behind the house. From there, they could see the forest stretching white and pristine in every direction, unbroken except for the thin line of smoke rising from their chimney. "It looks like the whole world is asleep," Kerra said, her breath misting in the cold air. "It feels like we are the only people alive," Landon agreed. He wrapped his arm around her shoulders and she leaned into him, fitting against his side as though she had been designed for that exact space. "I wish that were true," Kerra said quietly. "I wish we could stay in this moment forever, where nothing outside exists to hurt us or tear us apart." "We cannot stop time," Landon said, "but we can make the most of what we have. And right now, we have each other, this farm, and a winter that will keep the rest of the world away for a few more months at least." Kerra turned in his arms, her face serious in the starlight. "Landon, when spring comes, things will get complicated. The brigade will resume their patrols. Neighbors will visit. The tax collector will come. We will not be able to hide my presence forever." "I know," he said, "and when they discover me, they will not be kind. They will call you a traitor, an orc lover. They might imprison you or worse. Your life as you know it will end." "I know that too." "Then why?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Why are you willing to risk everything for me?" Landon thought about his answer carefully because it mattered. Finally, he said, "Because for 3 years I have been living half a life. Going through the motions, surviving but not really alive. And then you came and suddenly everything had color again. Meaning. Purpose. You made me remember what it feels like to want to wake up in the morning, to look forward to the day ahead. So yes, when spring comes, things will get difficult. But I would rather face difficulty with you than face emptiness alone." Kerra pressed her face into his chest, her shoulders shaking. "You are going to break my heart, Landon Norris, because I know, even if you do not, that this cannot end well. Our peoples will not allow it. The world will not allow it. Then we will change the world," Landon said stubbornly. "Or at least our small corner of it." She pulled back, tears freezing on her cheeks, and laughed shakily. "You are impossibly naive and impossibly brave, and I love you so much it terrifies me." "Good," he said, wiping away her tears with his thumbs. "Terror seems appropriate for the circumstances." They kissed there on the hill under the stars, surrounded by pristine snow and infinite silence, and made promises to each other that neither was sure they could keep, but both were determined to try. Winter deepened. The days grew short and bitterly cold, and the world contracted to the warm spaces they created: the house, the barn, the small radius of the farm. They worked together with the easy synchronicity of people who understood each other without needing many words. Kerra's strength continued to amaze him, but so did her gentleness. She would spend hours carving small figures from wood animals, people, abstract designs, and leave them around the house like surprises for him to find. In return, Landon taught her to read human script more fluently. She had some knowledge from the trade caravans, but he helped her improve, and watching her bent over a book with fierce concentration made something tender unfold in his chest. They celebrated the winter solstice together, blending human and orc traditions into something uniquely theirs. Landon made a feast with the preserved foods from the cellar, while Kerra wove evergreen branches into wreaths and told him stories of the old gods her people honored. They stayed up all night to greet the dawn, and when the sun finally rose, weak but growing stronger, they held each other and felt the truth of renewal. "This is my happiest moment," Kerra said, her voice hushed with wonder. "Right now, this instant, I want to remember it forever." "Then we will make more moments like it," Landon promised. "Enough that you cannot possibly remember them all individually, so they blur together into a lifetime of happiness." "A lifetime," Kerra repeated as though testing the words. "Could we truly have that? A whole lifetime?" "I do not know," Landon admitted, "but I want to try." January brought new challenges. The cow fell ill again, this time with something more serious than a cough. She refused food and her milk dried up completely. Landon spent hours trying different remedies while Kerra stood by, mixing potions and offering suggestions. Finally, on the third night, Kerra suggested a radical treatment, a tincture made from tree bark that required careful preparation and precise dosing. "If we get it wrong, it could kill her," Kerra warned. "But if we do nothing, she will die anyway." Landon looked at his cow, at her dull eyes and labored breathing. He thought about how his father had bought her as a calf, how she had been a constant presence through all the changes and losses. "Do it," he said. "I trust you." Kerra prepared the tincture with painstaking care, measuring and mixing by candlelight. When it was ready, she administered it while Landon held the cow steady and whispered soothing nonsense. Then they waited. The night crawled past. They took turns sitting with the cow, watching for any change. Around 3 in the morning, Landon dozed off sitting against the stall, only to wake to Kerra shaking his shoulder. "Landon, look," she said, and her voice was full of hope. The cow was standing, and while she still looked weak, her eyes were brighter. As they watched, she dipped her head to the water bucket and drank deeply. "You did it," Landon breathed. "She is going to live." "We did it," Kerra corrected, but she was grinning, her tusks catching the lantern light. Together, they celebrated with tired laughter and an embrace that lasted until the cow mooed at them irritably, clearly wanting her breakfast. Afterward, walking back to the house through the pre-dawn darkness, Landon felt something shift inside him. This was partnership. This was what it meant to build a life with someone, facing challenges together, trusting each other's knowledge, celebrating victories no matter how small. He wanted more of this. He wanted decades of this. "Kerra," he said, stopping in the middle of the yard. She turned to look at him, her face questioning. "I know it is too soon. I know there are 1,000 reasons to wait, to be cautious, but I cannot seem to make myself care about any of them. What are you saying?" she asked, but there was something in her eyes that suggested she knew, or hoped she knew. Landon took her hands, feeling the familiar warmth of her skin. "I am saying that I want you to stay forever. Not as a guest, not as a fugitive hiding in my barn, but as my partner. My wife, if humans can use that word for what we would be. My bonded mate in the orc way. I do not care what we call it as long as it means we face everything together from now on." Kerra's eyes went wide, then filled with tears. "Landon, you cannot mean this. We have known each other for only a few months. I have known loneliness for years," he countered. "And I have known joy only since I met you. That seems like enough information to make a decision. But what about spring? What about when people discover us?" "Let them discover us," Landon said fiercely. "Let them see that an orc and a human can build something good together. Let them see that their hate and fear are not inevitable, and if they cannot accept it, then we will leave. Go somewhere more remote, somewhere no one cares about old prejudices. But I will not let fear of the future steal this moment from us." Kerra was crying openly now, tears streaming down her green cheeks. "You are asking me to marry you." "Yes," he said simply. "I am. Will you?" For a long, terrible moment she said nothing. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "Yes. Yes, I will marry you, Landon Norris. I will bond with you in the way of my people and marry you in the way of yours. And whatever consequences come, we will face them together." He kissed her then, deep and desperate, pouring all his love and hope and fear into the contact. When they finally broke apart, the sun was rising, painting the snow-covered world in shades of gold and pink. "When?" Kerra asked, still held close in his arms. "When should we do this?" Landon thought about it. In human custom, marriage required a priest or magistrate, witnesses, legal documentation. None of that was possible here, not without exposing Kerra to danger. But perhaps that did not matter. Perhaps what mattered was the promise they made to each other, regardless of who witnessed it. "Now," he said, "tonight, we will create our own ceremony, blend our traditions, make it real in the ways that matter to us. Is that acceptable?" Kerra smiled through her tears. "It is perfect." They spent the day in preparation. Kerra explained the orc bonding ritual. It required an exchange of vows, a symbolic joining of hands, and the exchange of tokens that represented each person's essence. Landon shared what he knew of human marriage ceremonies, the promises of devotion, the exchange of rings, the declaration before witnesses, however imaginary those witnesses might be. They decided to blend everything together into something uniquely theirs. Kerra went into the forest and returned with branches of evergreen and winterberry. Landon searched his mother's things and found 2 simple silver rings that had belonged to his grandparents. They would serve as both wedding rings and bonding tokens. As evening fell, they prepared the farmhouse. Kerra arranged the evergreen branches around the main room, filling the space with the sharp, clean scent of winter. Landon built up the fire until it roared, casting everything in warm, golden light. They dressed in their best clothing, Landon in his father's good shirt and jacket, Kerra in a tunic she had carefully mended and cleaned until it looked nearly new. When they were ready, they stood facing each other before the fire. There was no priest, no magistrate, no witnesses except the old walls of the farmhouse and whatever gods or spirits might be listening, but it felt sacred nonetheless. "I do not know the proper words," Landon admitted. "I do not know how this is supposed to go." "Then we make our own words," Kerra said. "Words that are true to us." Landon nodded. He took a breath and began. "Kerra, when you came into my life, I was a ghost, just moving through the days, surviving but not living. You brought me back to life. You made me remember what it means to hope, to laugh, to care about something beyond just getting through another day. I promise to honor you, to protect you, to stand beside you no matter what challenges come. I promise to choose you every day for as long as I live." Kerra's hands trembled in his. When she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. "Landon, my people have a saying: we bond with our whole heart or not at all. There is no half measure, no tentative commitment. When I say I am yours, I mean it with every part of myself. You gave me shelter when I was hunted. You gave me kindness when I expected hatred. You gave me love when I thought I would never know it again. I promise to honor you, to stand with you, to face whatever comes with courage. I promise that my heart is yours now and always, until the stars themselves go dark." They slipped the silver rings onto each other's fingers. The metal was cold at first, then warmed quickly from their skin. Landon looked down at the ring on his hand and felt the weight of it, the reality of what they were doing settling into his bones. "In orc tradition," Kerra said softly, "there is one more element. We cut our palms and join them, mixing our blood as a symbol of unity." Landon did not hesitate. "Then let us do it properly." Kerra retrieved a knife from the kitchen and cleaned it carefully in the fire. Then, with steady hands, she made a small cut across her left palm. Blood welled up, dark against her green skin. She offered the knife to Landon, who took it, and made a matching cut on his own palm. The pain was sharp and immediate, but it felt right, a physical seal to match their emotional promises. They pressed their palms together, blood mingling between them. Landon felt the warmth of her hand, the slight rough texture of her skin, the steady pulse of her heartbeat echoing through the contact. "With this blood we are joined," Kerra said, reciting what must be ancient words from her people. "Two lives becoming one path, two hearts beating as one song." "With this blood we are joined," Landon repeated. "From this moment forward, what affects one affects both. We stand together, fall together, rise together." They stayed like that for a long moment, palms pressed tight, feeling the physical reality of their union. Then Kerra produced strips of clean linen and they bound each other's wounds, wrapping the bandages carefully. "It is done," Kerra whispered. "We are bonded, we are married. In every way that matters, you are mine and I am yours." Landon pulled her close, kissing her with all the love and commitment surging through him. "My wife," he said against her lips. "My bonded mate, my partner, my Kerra." "My husband," she answered, and the word sounded like a benediction. "My Landon." They made love that night for the first time, a slow and tender exploration that felt like the natural culmination of everything they had shared. Landon marveled at the beauty of her body, the smooth green skin, the strength and softness combined. She was patient with his inexperience, guiding him with gentle hands and whispered encouragement, and when they finally came together completely, it felt like a homecoming. Afterward, they lay tangled together in his bed, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her shoulder. The ring on his finger caught the candlelight, a small circle of silver that represented everything they had promised each other. "Are you happy?" Kerra asked quietly. "Happier than I knew it was possible to be," Landon said honestly. "Are you?" "I am terrified," she admitted. "Because now I have something to lose. Before, I was alone, running, surviving day to day. If I died, it would have been sad but not tragic. Now I have you and a life and a future I actually want. The thought of losing it is almost unbearable." Landon tightened his arms around her. "Then we will protect it," he said. "Whatever it takes, we will protect what we have built." "Promise me something," Kerra said. "Promise me that no matter what happens, you will not regret this. Even if things go badly, even if we face consequences, promise me you will not wish you had chosen differently." "I promise," Landon said without hesitation. I could never regret choosing you." She kissed his chest, right over his heart. "Then I am content," she said. "Whatever comes, we faced it together, and that is enough." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, two lives joined into one path, and for that night at least, the world outside ceased to exist. The winter continued, and with it came a deepening of their bond. Marriage had not changed their daily routine. They still worked the farm, still tended the animals, still spent evenings by the fire, but it had changed the quality of everything. Every small moment felt richer, more meaningful. When Kerra laughed at something he said, Landon felt it in his chest like warmth spreading. When he surprised her with a gift, a new carving knife he had ordered before they met, forgotten until he found it in a drawer, her joy lit up the entire house. They learned each other's bodies and hearts with equal attention. Landon discovered that Kerra loved having her ears touched, that she hummed unconsciously when she was content, that she cried easily but always tried to hide it. Kerra learned that Landon was ticklish behind his knees, that he talked in his sleep sometimes, that he felt things deeply but struggled to express them in words. They had their first real argument in late February. It started small. Landon wanted to repair the roof. Kerra thought it could wait until the weather improved, and escalated when their different cultural approaches to disagreement collided. Orcs, Landon learned, were direct to the point of bluntness when arguing, seeing it as a healthy way to clear the air. Humans, at least in his family, tended to avoid conflict and retreat into silence. The clash left them both frustrated and hurt. Kerra retreated to the barn, despite the cold, and Landon sat alone in the house, replaying the argument and feeling miserable. It took him 2 hours to realize that this was fixable, that marriage meant working through conflict rather than avoiding it. He went to the barn and found her sitting in the loft, staring out at the winter landscape. "I am sorry," he said, "not for disagreeing with you, but for how I handled it. I shut down instead of talking it through." Kerra looked at him, her expression guarded. "I am sorry too, I was too harsh. Sometimes I forget that human and orc communication styles are different." "So we learn," Landon said, climbing up to sit beside her. "We figure out how to argue in a way that works for both of us, because this will not be our last disagreement." "Probably not," Kerra agreed, a small smile tugging at her lips. "You are stubborn." "Look who is talking," Landon said, and they both laughed, the tension breaking. They talked through their different approaches, found compromises, agreed on ways to handle future conflicts. It was not easy, but it felt important, like they were building the foundation for a partnership that could weather storms. That night back in bed, Kerra said, "This is harder than I expected. Not the love part that is easy, but the building a life part, learning to exist as we instead of I." "It is harder than I expected too," Landon admitted, "but also better. Even the difficult parts feel worthwhile because we are doing them together." "Together," Kerra repeated as though the word itself was a talisman. "Yes, that makes it worthwhile." March arrived with the first hints of thaw. Snow melted in patches, revealing the brown earth beneath. Birds returned to the trees, their songs breaking the winter silence, and with the changing season came a growing tension. Spring meant the world would intrude again, neighbors visiting, the tax collector making his rounds, the possibility of brigade patrols increasing. Landon and Kerra discussed their options. They could try to hide her presence, have her disappear into the forest whenever someone approached. But that felt like living in constant fear, and Landon refused to make his wife hide like a criminal in her own home. They could leave, try to make it to one of the northern territories, where mixed communities were rumored to exist. But the farm was Landon's heritage, his parents' legacy. Abandoning it would feel like abandoning them. In the end, they decided to take a middle path. Kerra would stay on the farm, but they would be cautious, careful about who saw her and when. If someone discovered them, they would face it together and decide their next steps based on the reaction. "I am tired of running," Kerra said as they discussed it. "I ran for months after the caravan attack. I hid in your forest like a frightened animal, but I am your wife now. This is my home. I will not hide in my own home unless there is no other choice." Landon admired her courage even as it terrified him. "Then we will be vigilant," he said. "And if it comes to it, we will fight for our right to be together." The first test came in mid-March when Landon saw a rider approaching from the east. His closest neighbor, Marcus, a grizzled widower who minded his own business but occasionally stopped by to trade supplies or share news. Landon's heart raced as he saw the man coming up the road. "Kerra," he called. "Someone is coming." She appeared from the barn, wiping her hands on a rag. When she saw the rider, her expression hardened. "I will go inside," she said, "but I am not hiding in the cellar or the forest. I will be in the house, and if he comes in, he comes in." Landon nodded, understanding her position even as anxiety churned in his stomach. "All right. But let me talk to him first. Maybe I can keep this short." He met Marcus at the gate, forcing a smile. "Marcus, good to see you. What brings you out this way?" The older man dismounted, his joints creaking. "Just checking on you, boy. Did not see your chimney smoke for a few days. Got worried you might have taken ill." "No, I am fine," Landon said. "Just been busy with repairs is all." Marcus looked past him toward the house, and Landon saw the moment the man spotted something, a figure moving past the window, perhaps, or the extra set of boots by the door that Kerra had left outside to dry. The older man's eyes narrowed. "You got someone staying with you?" Marcus asked casually. Landon's mind raced. He could lie, make up a story about a distant relative, but something in him rebelled against it. He was tired of lies, tired of pretending. "Yes," he said, "my wife." Marcus's eyebrows shot up. "Wife? When the hell did you get married? I did not hear about any wedding." "It was private," Landon said. "Very private. We did not want any fuss." "Well, I will be damned," Marcus said, breaking into a grin. "Good for you, boy. About time you had some company out here. What is her name? She local?" This was the moment of truth. Landon could feel it, the precipice he was standing on. One more lie and he could maintain the deception. Or he could trust, take a risk, see if maybe the world was not as cruel as he feared. "Her name is Kerra," he said. "And no, she is not local. She is from the mountain territories." "Mountain territories," Marcus repeated. "That is Orc land, is it not?" "Yes," Landon said simply and waited. Marcus studied him for a long moment. The older man's expression was unreadable. Then he said, "She treats you well." The question caught Landon off guard. "What, your wife? Does she treat you well, make you happy?" "Yes," Landon said, bewildered, "very much so. And you love her?" "With all my heart." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then I do not see as it is any of my business what color her skin is or where her people come from." He paused. "Though I will say you are taking a hell of a risk. The brigade finds out, there will be trouble." "I know," Landon said, "and you think it is worth it." "I know it is." Marcus was quiet for another moment. Then he stuck out his hand. "Well then, congratulations on your marriage, Landon. I hope you two have a good life together." Landon shook the offered hand, relief flooding through him. "Thank you, Marcus. That means more than you know." "I do not talk much," Marcus said, "and I mind my own business. Your secret is safe with me, long as you want it to be a secret. But you might want to think about what happens when it is not a secret anymore. Because that day is coming, boy. You know that, right?" "I know," Landon said. "We will face it when it comes." Marcus mounted his horse. "You need anything, you send word. And maybe introduce me to your wife properly sometime. I would like to meet the woman who finally put a smile on your face." He rode off, leaving Landon standing at the gate, slightly stunned. Kerra emerged from the house, her expression anxious. "What happened?" she asked. "I heard voices but could not make out the words." "He knows," Landon said. "I told him, and he was fine with it, more than fine. He congratulated us." Kerra's eyes widened. "Truly, truly." Landon pulled her into his arms. "Maybe we are not as alone as we thought. Maybe there are more people like Marcus, who care more about a person's character than their species. Or maybe we got lucky," Kerra said, but she was smiling. "Either way, I am glad we do not have to hide from at least one person." The encounter with Marcus gave them hope, but it also made them more cautious. They knew not everyone would react so generously. As spring advanced and the roads dried out, they prepared for the inevitable moment when their secret would become public knowledge. That moment came in early April, when the tax collector arrived. His name was Edmund Gray, a thin man with a pinched face and the officious manner of someone who enjoyed wielding even minor authority. He rode up to the farm with his ledger book and his measuring tools, ready to assess Landon's property for the annual tax. Landon met him outside, trying to keep the interaction away from the house. But Edmund was thorough, insisting on inspecting all the buildings and fields to ensure an accurate assessment. Landon had no choice but to allow it, his stomach churning with anxiety. They were halfway through examining the barn when Kerra came around the corner, carrying a bucket of feed for the chickens. She froze when she saw Edmund, and Edmund froze when he saw her. For a moment, no one moved. Then Edmund's face twisted with disgust and horror. "That is an orc," he said, his voice rising. "There is an orc on your property, Norris." "That is my wife," Landon said firmly, moving to stand beside Kerra. "Her name is Kerra and she lives here." Edmund's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Your wife? You married an orc?" He spat the word like a curse. "That is obscene, unnatural, illegal." "There is no law against it," Landon said, though his heart was hammering, "and I would thank you to speak respectfully about my wife." "Respectfully?" Edmund looked like he might vomit. "You are harboring a monster, Norris. The brigade has been looking for an orc woman who murdered a child. I wonder if this is her." "I killed no one," Kerra said, her voice steady despite the fear Landon could see in her eyes. "That is a lie spread by men who want an excuse to hunt my people." "I do not believe you," Edmund sneered. "And I do not care what fantasies Norris has been feeding himself. I am reporting this immediately. The brigade will come and they will cleanse this farm of your filth." He turned to leave, but Landon grabbed his arm. "Wait, please, just listen for a moment." Edmund yanked his arm free. "Do not touch me. You are as disgusting as she is, throwing your lot in with orc trash." Rage flared hot in Landon's chest, but before he could respond, Kerra placed a hand on his shoulder. "Let him go," she said quietly. "Fighting him will only make things worse." Edmund mounted his horse and spurred it toward the road, not looking back. Landon watched him disappear, his mind racing through scenarios, each worse than the last. "How long do we have?" Kerra asked. "I do not know. A day, maybe two, before the brigade comes." Landon turned to her, taking her hands. "We need to leave, now. Pack what we can carry and head north before they arrive." But Kerra shook her head. "No more running, Landon. We agreed. This is our home. If we run now, we will be running forever." "If we stay, they will kill you," Landon said desperately. "Possibly me too. I will not let that happen." "Then we fight," Kerra said. "Or we find another way. But I am tired of living in fear, tired of letting hateful people dictate how we live. We have done nothing wrong. We fell in love, we married. That is not a crime, whatever they might claim." "You are talking about facing down the cleansing brigade," Landon said. "They are armed, trained, and they do not care about justice." "Neither do I," Kerra said fiercely. Not their version of it anyway. I care about defending my home and my husband, and I will do that with my dying breath if necessary. Landon pulled her close, his heart breaking. I do not want you to die for me. And I do not want you to die for me, Kerra said against his chest. So we will find a way to live instead. Together, like we promised. They spent the rest of the day preparing. Kerra went into the forest and returned with her old armor and weapons pieces she had hidden when she first arrived. A well-made sword, a bow with a quiver of arrows, a long knife. Landon had his father's old musket, rarely used but well-maintained. They were not an army, but they were not defenseless either. That night, neither of them slept. They sat together in the kitchen, watching the road, waiting for the inevitable. Landon held Kerra's hand, memorizing the feel of her skin, the steady beat of her pulse. I do not regret this, he said into the darkness. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that I do not regret a single moment. Neither do I, Kerra said. You gave me the happiest months of my life. That is more than many people ever get. It is not enough, Landon said fiercely. I wanted decades with you, a lifetime, children maybe growing old together. Then we fight for that chance, Kerra said. We fight and maybe we win. Dawn came gray and cold. They ate a breakfast neither of them tasted, then took up positions, Kerra in the barn's loft with her bow, Landon at the house with the musket. If the brigade came, they would be ready. The riders appeared around mid-morning. 6 of them this time, led by the same scarred man who had chased Kerra months ago. They rode slowly up the road, weapons visible, faces set in grim determination. Landon stepped out onto his porch, the musket held across his chest. This is private property, he called out. You are not welcome here. The leader, Captain Vane, Landon had learned his name, was reined in his horse. We are here for the orc, Norris. Give her up and we will consider your cooperation when deciding your punishment. There is no orc here, Landon said. Only my wife. And she has committed no crime. Your wife, Vane spat. You married an orc. That is perversion, Norris, against nature and against God. My marriage is none of your concern, Landon said, keeping his voice steady despite his pounding heart. And you have no authority to make demands on my property. We have the authority to cleanse orc filth from human lands, Vane said. And that is what we intend to do. Now step aside or we will go through you. Then you will have to go through me, Landon said. He raised the musket, aiming it directly at Vane. Because I will not let you hurt my wife. The other riders moved their hands to their weapons, but before anyone could draw, an arrow thudded into the ground at Vane's horse's feet. The animal reared, nearly throwing the captain. The next one goes through your throat, Kerra's voice rang out from the barn. I am an excellent shot, Captain. Test me if you doubt it. Vane got his horse under control, his face purple with rage. You are outnumbered, orc. Surrender now and we might make your death quick. Or you could leave, Kerra called back. Ride away and never return. Let us live in peace. We have done nothing to you. Your very existence is an affront, Vane snarled. Orcs and humans do not mix. You poison his blood, corrupt his soul. Enough, Landon shouted. I am tired of listening to your hate. Kerra is my wife. I chose her, she chose me, and we have built a life together. That life is precious and worth defending. So make your choice, Vane. Leave now or we fight. But know that if we fight, some of you will not ride away. For a long moment, silence stretched taut as a bowstring. The brigade riders shifted nervously, glancing at each other. They had expected an easy capture, not resistance. Not a human defending an orc with his life. Then one of the younger riders said, Captain, maybe we should reconsider. If he is willing to die for her, maybe there is more to this than we thought. Shut up, Garrett, Vane snapped. I give the orders. Then give the order, Landon said. Attack or leave, but decide now. Vane's hand moved toward his pistol. Landon's finger tightened on the trigger. Everything balanced on a knife's edge. Then another voice rang out. Hold! A new rider was approaching from the east. Marcus, riding hard, his old musket across his lap. He pulled up beside the brigade riders, his expression hard. You got business here, Marcus? Vane demanded. Maybe I do, Marcus said. This is my neighbor you are threatening. Good man, Norris, honest, hard-working. I have known him since he was a boy. He is harboring an orc criminal, Vane said. He is married to an orc woman, Marcus corrected. And before you go making accusations, maybe you should have proof. You got any proof she committed a crime? Actual proof, not just assumptions. We do not need proof, Vane said. She is orc. That is enough. That is not enough, Marcus said flatly. Not for me, and not for the law such as it is out here. You want to attack a citizen on his own property because you do not like who he married, you will have to go through me too. This is none of your concern, old man, Vane said. I am making it my concern, Marcus said. Now, I am going to suggest again that you leave, before this turns into something ugly that you regret. Other riders were appearing now, drawn by the commotion or perhaps by Marcus's signal. Thomas Reed, who owned the farm to the south. Mary Patterson and her 2 adult sons from the west. Even old Willem, the blacksmith from the nearest village, 5 miles distant. They came armed and wary, but they came, and they positioned themselves between the brigade and Landon's farm. What is this? Vane demanded, looking around at the gathering crowd. You all stand with an orc lover. We stand with our neighbor, Thomas Reed said. And we stand against bullies who think they can terrorize people on their own land. Vane looked around, clearly calculating odds. The brigade was outnumbered now, and the people facing them were not soldiers but farmers and craftsmen, people who knew how to fight because they had to, not because they enjoyed it. Finally, with visible reluctance, Vane reined his horse around. This is not over, Norris, he said. You have made yourself an outcast. None of these people will help you forever. Eventually, you will be alone, and when that happens, we will return. Then I will be waiting, Landon said. The brigade rode away, their departure marked by dark looks and muttered threats. When they were out of sight, Landon lowered the musket, his hands shaking from the adrenaline. Kerra climbed down from the barn loft and came to stand beside him, and together they faced the neighbors who had come to their defense. Thank you, Landon said, his voice thick. All of you. You did not have to take that risk. Maybe not, Marcus said, but you are one of us, Norris, and way I see it, a man's got a right to choose who he loves without being terrorized for it. I will not lie and say I understand it, Thomas Reed added. Orc and human, it is strange to me. But I knew your father, boy. Good man. Figure if he raised you right, you would not make a choice this big lightly, so I am willing to give your wife a chance to prove she is worth the risk you are taking. Kerra stepped forward, her chin high. I am grateful for your defense, she said clearly. And I promise that I will be a good neighbor to all of you. I will cause no trouble and I will help where I can. All I ask is a chance to live in peace with my husband. Mary Patterson studied Kerra for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You speak well and you stand proud. Those are qualities I respect. You take care of Landon, treat him right, and I will have no quarrel with you. One by one, the neighbors offered similar sentiments: wary acceptance, willingness to wait and see, promises not to speak of Kerra's presence to outsiders. It was not enthusiastic welcome, but it was not rejection either. It was a beginning. As the crowd dispersed, returning to their own farms and lives, Marcus lingered. You know, Vane was not lying, he said quietly. This is not over. The brigade will be back, and next time they might come in larger numbers. I know, Landon said, but we will face it when it happens. "You are a stubborn fool," Marcus said, but there was affection in his voice. "Just like your father." He turned to Kerra. "You take care of him, you hear? He is reckless when he thinks he is being noble." "I will protect him with my life," Kerra said. "I believe you will," Marcus said. He nodded once, then mounted his horse and rode away. When they were finally alone, Landon turned to Kerra and pulled her into his arms. She was shaking, he realized, trembling like a leaf despite her brave front. "It is over," he said. "We are safe. For now, we are safe." "They came for us," Kerra whispered. "Your neighbors. They barely know me, and they came to stand between us and danger." "Because that is what good people do," Landon said. "And there are more good people in the world than we sometimes remember." They stood like that for a long time, holding each other in the spring sunshine, and felt the weight of their impossible choice settling into something more bearable. They were not alone. They had allies, tenuous and uncertain perhaps, but allies nonetheless. Spring turned to summer. The farm flourished under their joint care, producing the best crops Landon had seen in years. Word of the confrontation with the brigade spread through the region, and reactions were mixed. Some people refused to trade with Landon anymore, crossing to the other side of the road when they saw him in the village. Others were cautiously friendly, curious about the orc woman who had inspired such loyalty. Kerra won people over slowly, through small acts of kindness and competence. When Mary Patterson's daughter fell ill, Kerra provided herbs and instructions that helped the girl recover. When a late frost threatened Thomas Reed's orchards, Kerra taught him an orc technique for protecting the blossoms that saved his harvest. Gradually, cautious acceptance turned into genuine respect. The brigade did not return, though rumors of their continued searching reached Landon from time to time. Edmund Gray, the tax collector, disappeared. Some said he had been reassigned. Others that he had left the region entirely after his superiors questioned his handling of the situation. The local magistrate, a practical man more interested in peace than ideology, quietly made it known that mixed marriages were not illegal, merely unusual, and that people who caused trouble over such unions would face consequences. Life settled into a new normal. Landon and Kerra worked their farm, traded with neighbors, and built the life they had fought for. Some evenings they would walk to the hill behind the house and look out over the land they had defended together. "You ever regret it?" Landon asked one such evening as the summer sun painted the sky in shades of gold and pink. "Staying here, marrying me, fighting to keep this life." Kerra leaned against him, solid and warm. "Never," she said. "This is the life I choose every day. You are the person I choose every day." "That has not changed." "Good," Landon said, kissing the top of her head. "Because I choose you too, every day, forever." As summer deepened, they received an unexpected visitor. A young orc male, barely more than a boy, appeared at their gate one afternoon. He was thin and travel-worn, carrying only a small pack, and when he saw Kerra he fell to his knees. "Please," he said in the orc tongue, which Landon had been learning. "I was told there was an orc woman here who had found peace with a human. I need help. I need sanctuary." Kerra rushed to him, helping him stand. "What is your name? What happened?" "I am called Thrak," the young orc said. "I fled from a human settlement to the south. They were going to kill me for stealing food, but I was starving. I have been running for days. Someone said you might help." Landon and Kerra exchanged glances. Then, without needing to discuss it, they opened their gate. "Come inside," Landon said. "You are safe here. We will feed you and you can rest." Thrak looked between them with wonder. "It is true, then. A human and an orc living in peace. I thought it was just a story." "It is real," Kerra said gently, "and you are welcome here as long as you need." Thrak stayed for 3 days, eating, resting, and recovering his strength. In that time, He told them his story, a familiar tale of prejudice and persecution, of trying to survive in a world that saw him as a monster. When he was ready to leave, they gave him supplies and directions to a northern settlement where orcs and humans lived in relative harmony. "Thank you," Thrak said as he prepared to depart. "What you are doing here, what you have built, it gives people like me hope. Hope that maybe the world can change. One person at a time," Kerra said. "One choice at a time. That is how change happens." After Thrak left, Kerra turned to Landon. "What if we could do more?" she asked. "What if we could create a place where others like Thrak could come? A sanctuary, a way station for those fleeing persecution." Landon considered this. "It would be dangerous, draw attention, make us even more of a target for people who hate what we represent." "I know," Kerra said, "but we have already made ourselves a target, and we have proved that we can defend ourselves, that we have allies. Maybe it is time to do more than just survive. Maybe it is time to actively work toward the world we want to see." Landon looked at his wife, at the fierce determination in her golden eyes, and felt love surge through him. "All right," he said. "Let us do it. Let us build something that matters." Over the following months, they quietly spread word that their farm was a safe haven for those in need, orc or human. They did not advertise openly, that would have been suicide, but through careful channels and trusted contacts, the message reached those who needed it. They sheltered a half-orc child whose human mother had died, and whose orc father was too old to care for her. They gave refuge to a human man fleeing religious persecution, who had nowhere else to turn. They helped a young orc woman who had been separated from her caravan and had no way to reach her family. Each person they helped was a small victory, a tiny act of resistance against the hatred that divided their world. It was exhausting and often frightening. There were close calls, brigade patrols that passed too near, suspicious neighbors who asked too many questions, moments when discovery seemed inevitable. But their network of allies grew, and with it, their ability to protect those they sheltered. Harvest came, and with it a celebration. Their neighbors, those who had stood with them against the brigade, gathered at the farm for a feast. It was a small group, perhaps 20 people in total, but the mixture of species was remarkable. Orcs sat beside humans, sharing food and stories, and for one evening the divisions that plagued their world seemed to fade. Marcus raised a toast. "To Landon and Kerra," he said, "who proved that love is stronger than hate and that courage matters more than comfort. May their example inspire us all." "To Landon and Kerra," the group echoed, and the sound of it, human and orc voices together, brought tears to Kerra's eyes. Later, as they cleaned up after the feast, Kerra said, "A year ago I thought I would die in your forest. Alone, hunted, forgotten. Now I have a home, a husband, friends, and a purpose. How did this happen? You whispered 'marry me tonight' to a lonely farmer and he forgot how to breathe," Landon said, grinning. "Well, not quite like that, but close enough." Kerra laughed, the sound bright and free. "That is not how I remember it." "No. How do you remember it?" she considered. "I remember being terrified and desperate. I remember golden eyes meeting mine across a field. I remember a man who chose kindness when cruelty would have been easier. And I remember thinking in that moment that maybe there was hope in the world after all." "And was there?" Landon asked. "Hope, I mean." "Yes," Kerra said simply. "There was. There is. Every day there is hope, because we chose each other, because we fought for this. Because we refused to let fear win." They stood together in the evening light, surrounded by the evidence of their impossible life, the farm they had defended, the friends they had made, the future they were building piece by piece. It was not easy, would never be easy, but it was real and it was theirs. Winter came again, their second winter together. This time they were not alone in facing it. The network they had built, The community they had fostered would help see everyone through the cold months. And when spring returned, they would continue their work, one small act of kindness at a time. One evening, as snow fell soft outside their windows, Kerra placed Landon's hand on her stomach. "I have something to tell you," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Landon's eyes went wide. "Are you?" "Yes," Kerra said, tears streaming down her green cheeks. "We are going to have a child, our child." Landon pulled her close, overwhelmed by the magnitude of it. A child. Their child. Half human, half orc, and entirely theirs. Living proof that bridges could be built between divided peoples. "What kind of world are we bringing them into?" Kerra asked, voicing the fear they both felt. "A world that might hate them for existing. A world we are working to change," Landon said. "A world where, because of what we have done here, they will have allies and friends. A world that is slowly, painfully learning that love matters more than prejudice." He cupped her face in his hands. "We cannot promise them a perfect world, but we can promise them a fighting chance. And we can promise them that they will be loved beyond measure." Kerra kissed him, pouring all her hope and fear and joy into the contact. "Then that will have to be enough," she said. "Love and a fighting chance. That is more than many people get." Spring came again, as it always does. Kerra's pregnancy progressed, and their neighbors, all of them, human and orc alike, rallied around them with support and excitement. Mary Patterson knitted tiny clothes. Marcus built a cradle with his own hands. Thomas Reed's wife, a midwife, promised to be there for the birth. The baby came on a warm day in late spring, arriving with a lusty cry that announced their entrance to the world. A girl, healthy and perfect, with her mother's green skin softened to sage, her father's dark hair, and eyes that shifted between gold and brown depending on the light. They named her Ilara, which meant hope in the old orc tongue and light in the human language. When Landon held his daughter for the first time, looking down at her tiny face, he felt the full weight of everything they had fought for settle into clarity. This was why it mattered. This small, precious life, born from the impossible union of two peoples, was the future they had been working toward. "Hello, Ilara," he whispered. "Welcome to the world. Your mother and I have been preparing it for you, making it a little bit better, a little bit kinder. We are not finished yet, not by a long way, but you are here now, and that means we have to keep going, keep fighting, keep building." Kerra, exhausted but radiant, reached up to touch his hand. "She is ours," she said wonderingly. "Proof that the impossible is possible. That love can transcend anything." "She is ours," Landon agreed, "and we will protect her, raise her, teach her to be strong and kind and brave, just like her mother." "And thoughtful and gentle and stubborn," Kerra added, "just like her father." They laughed together, tired and overwhelmed and happier than either had thought possible. Outside the window, the farm they had fought for stretched green and growing in the spring sunshine. Their neighbors would arrive soon, bearing gifts and congratulations. The work of building a better world would continue tomorrow and every day after. But for now, in this moment, there were just the three of them, orc, human, and the bridge between them. A family, a future, a hope made flesh. And that, Landon thought as he held his wife and daughter close, was the happiest ending he could imagine. Not perfect, not without challenges ahead, but real and hard-won and worth every sacrifice they had made. He had been a lonely farmer once, resigned to solitude, moving through life like a ghost. Then an orc woman burst from the forest into his life, and everything changed. She had not whispered, "Marry me tonight," in the way the romantic story suggested. But she might as well have, because from that first moment their fates had been intertwined. And he had forgotten to breathe, forgotten everything except the golden eyes looking at him with desperate hope, and he had chosen kindness, chosen courage, chosen love. He had chosen Kerra and she had chosen him, and together they had built something that would outlast them both. A family, a community, a small corner of the world where peace was possible. That was enough. That was everything. And as Alara opened her eyes, remarkable eyes that held both of her parents in their shifting colors, Landon made her a silent promise. They would raise her in love, teach her to see beyond hatred, give her the tools to continue the work they had started. The world was changing, one small choice at a time, one act of kindness building on another. It would take generations, perhaps, to heal the wounds between orcs and humans. But they had started the process, and their daughter, their precious Alara, would carry it forward. The sun set that evening in a blaze of gold and crimson, painting the world in hopeful colors. Landon sat on the porch with Kerra beside him, and Alara sleeping peacefully in the cradle Marcus had made. Their neighbors had come and gone, leaving the house full of well wishes and gifts. The farm was quiet now, settling into the peace of evening. "Are you happy?" Kerra asked, echoing the question she had posed so many times before. "More than I ever thought possible," Landon said. "You?" "Terrified," Kerra admitted with a laugh. "I have no idea how to raise a child, especially one who will face challenges neither of us fully understand, but also happy. So deeply happy that sometimes I think my heart might burst from it." "We will figure it out," Landon said, "together, like we have figured out everything else." "Together," Kerra agreed, lacing her fingers through his. "Always together." They sat in comfortable silence as the stars began to appear, watching over their sleeping daughter and their hard-won peace. The future was uncertain, full of challenges they could not predict, but they would face it hand in hand. Because they had proved, against all odds and all expectations, that love could bridge any divide. That courage could overcome any obstacle. That two people, impossibly different, could build a life that mattered. And that, in the end, was the greatest victory of all. The lonely farmer was lonely no more. The hunted orc had found her home, and together they had created something beautiful, a family, a sanctuary, a testament to the power of choosing love over fear. Their story would be told in the years to come, whispered among those who sought hope in dark times. The tale of the human farmer and the orc woman who defied the world to build a life together, who created a haven for the lost and the persecuted, who proved that peace was possible even in the aftermath of war. But for now, on this quiet spring evening, they were simply a family. Landon and Kerra and little Alara, beginning their journey together, ready to face whatever came next. And as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Landon looked at his wife and daughter and knew, with absolute certainty, that he had made the right choice. Every risk, every sacrifice, every moment of fear and uncertainty had been worth it for this, for love, for family, for the future they were building one day at a time. The orc bride had not whispered, "Marry me tonight," in the traditional sense, but she had offered him something even more precious, a chance at real life, real love, real meaning. And the lonely farmer had taken that chance with both hands, forgotten to breathe in the face of such possibility, and found himself transformed. They had chosen each other, and in doing so, had chosen hope. And hope, as it turned out, was the strongest force of all.